Hey, good morning. Christy Mattoon here from Rewire. So glad you're here with me. I wanted to tell you a little story, and I'm always really intrigued with stories because sometimes we get some really cool messages out of them. And I heard this guy telling this story the other day. He was like a monk or something, I believe, and he was telling this story about this father who had four sons. And he told the four sons to go out into this area where he knew there was a pear tree. And he said, whenever you're ready, go out and take a look at this pear tree. And so one at a time, the four sons went to look at this pear tree. And the first son went to look at it and saw the pear tree and was not too impressed. The second son at a later time, went to look at it and saw the pear tree, and it filled his heart. And the third son went to look at it, and it filled his heart with great joy. He felt like he had a blessing. And the fourth son went to look at it and gained riches. Same tree. So later that year, the father sat the sons down and asked them, "Have you gone to look at the pear tree like I asked you to?" And all the sons said yes. And he said, "Tell me about it." And the first son said, "When I went to look at the pear tree, it was very old and lonely, and it was all gnarled up and bent, and it was very cold." He had gone to look at the pear tree in the middle of winter. The second son said, "No, that's not what I saw at all." He said, "When I went to look at the pear tree, it was just coming to life. It was like a breath of fresh air, had new buds on it, and it was just brimming with potential." And he had gone to look at the tree in springtime. And the third son said, "No, that's not what I saw at all." And he said when he had gone to look at the pear tree, it was budding with beautiful flowers, and his life was enriched from the smell. It was so amazing to stand at this pear tree and just smell the smell coming from all these fragrant flowers, and the beauty of the tree and the land around him. And his life was enriched. And the fourth son said, "What are you guys talking about?" He goes, "When I went to the pear tree, it was dripping with fruit, ripe for the harvest. And I picked the pears and took them into the market. I made a lot of money." And the father just looked at each one of them and he says, Be careful with your judgments. And good job to all of you for noticing what you noticed. Every single one of you is right. Not one of you is wrong. But be careful of your judgments when you stand at the base of something, because you don't know necessarily what season of its life you're in. And I took this a little bit further, and I started thinking about us as humans. In the seasons of life, when you're standing next to somebody, you might not know what season of life they're in. You might not have any idea what's going on in that season of their life that you're getting to stand there with them. And so, be careful of your judgments. And I find it interesting, like through the seasons with this pear tree, from looking old and lonely, he called it lonely, gnarled, all the way to brimming with riches in just 1 year. That's amazing. The seasons of life and how they can change a person and bring a person from the point of lonely and gnarled all the way to brimming with riches in a year. And that happens every year. We go through these seasons with these periods of time. And sometimes the periods of time for humans is years. Sometimes it takes time to get through these seasons. And I was just, as I was thinking about this, I was like, what an amazing lesson. And one of the things I tell people all the time is, when you're looking at people through the scope, through the lens of your heart instead of the lens of your brain, when you're looking at them through the lens of your heart, it changes the nature of the way you see people. And I literally had this happen at the last conference that I spoke at. we did this exercise. I did this little exercise with a lady to her specific issue that she came in wanting to clear in that very moment. And we did a little bit of work on the issue, gave her some clarity. She felt the difference. This was less than 15 minutes of work, of active work time, less than 15 minutes. And she was just like, wow. And she opened her eyes, and I told her, I always tell people the same thing. When you open your eyes, keep the feeling. Memorize the feeling into your system. This is the feeling of your heart. You don't want to lose this feeling. You want to know this feeling. And as she looked around the room, she was just like sitting there, and her eyes just welled up with tears just pouring down her face. And I was like, what are you seeing? And she said, people don't look the same. She goes, I'm very judgmental. She said she was very judgmental. She goes, everybody around this room has a soul. Everybody around this room has a spirit. She was blown away. She was shocked. She goes, all the stuff that I had been judging every time I look at somebody, ew, kind of thing. I was like, oh man. I was like, from your heart space, and the way I see it, the way I look at it is you're looking at people, you're looking in your universe, you're looking in your environment around you through the eyes of God. And when you look at people that way, you see them differently. If you're looking at them through the scope of your head, you're looking at them through a lens of polarity. You're looking at them through whatever your perception and whatever things you've learned, whatever things you've had go wrong inside your life. If you're looking at people through the lens of your heart, they don't look the same. You can't think the same. You can't feel the same about another human being through the lens of your heart, than you do through the lens of your brain. And so to me, it's just super interesting when you look at people this way, and then you recognize the seasons of life. And it gives you some compassion through the lens of your heart, where through the lens of your brain, you might dismiss a person. Through the lens of your brain, you might walk away from something that's about to be dripping in glory, dripping in riches. And I don't mean that to say it's going to make you rich, like monetarily rich. I'm saying that to say you never know what a person has gone through or will go through or is about to go through. And with your hand, with you standing there, how you can either enrich the person's life, they can enrich your life. Maybe they don't, the season you're going through. What if this person you're potentially judging is about to enrich the season of your life? Well, it's an interesting thing to think about. I hope this helps. As always, I'm blessed to be with you. Thank you for listening. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. I really appreciate that. Also, if you want to go over to Instagram, you can find me in there. And I hope to be talking to you again soon. Thanks.